Second what Jenny said, and the fourth point that was made in the declaration was about the U.S. servicemen remains and the retrieval of that. And I mean, there are millions of families that are held hostage by this unresolved state of war. 5,000 U.S. families that are waiting. I mean, my friend Rick Downs told me this story about how he flew into Pyongyang, and as he flew over the fields, I mean, he said that was the closest he had been to his father since he was 3 years old. And so that's just the American families and the children of U.S. servicemen that fought in the Korean War. But what about the millions of Korean families? We have seen studies of defectors in South Korea who want the reunification of Korea so that they could be with their families. I have friends here in the U.S. that are defectors that see this as an important step towards them possibly ever returning back to their hometown. So, and to the point that Kimberly brought about Cuba, I think there's a great parallel here. Stephen Kinzer, who is the New York Times reporter, the former, and who's written books about U.S. regime change. And he talks about this story about when Fidel Castro and Che Guevara met for the first time in Mexico City after the overthrow of Arbenz, the Guatemalan democratically elected president, in 1954. And they met for the first time, and he told, Che Guevara told Fidel what happened, and they made that agreement. And they said, if we succeed in retaking Cuba, we cannot have an open society because of the threat of being overthrown by the U.S. I mean, we know there is a history of covert and overt operations. And so, we have to understand that, I think, to push for a greater freedom and openness within North Korea. But we have to start with dialogue and, I believe, normalization of relations. And we have seen progress made on disability rights through respectful engagement with the North Korean government.
Christine, the point you made about still being at war, the war having not ended, a show that we did recently here on the stream, G.E. Lee on Twitter brings that up. He says Korea has been a divided